Amanda, why don't you lead?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that great rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. Ashley, I know all of the trustees in attendance, and we will move right to the statement of public hearing. Ashley, could you read that?
The purpose of this hearing is for public review and comment regarding the proposed 2025 Village of Grafton annual program budget and related levies.
Thank you. And Ashley, could I have the signs, please? Thank you. Very good. Jesse, take it away.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Tice. I'm the village administrator here in Grafton. Last week, the village held its one of its budget workshops where I presented an executive budget. The village board, acting as committee of the whole, weighed in, presented a couple of changes. That being said, the budget being presented this evening is the 2025 proposal as it sits coming out of that budget workshop. So the approach to the 2025 budget really had three main goals. Really, we wanted to look to craft a budget for the village that mitigates the impact of the fire and EMS referendum. We're very cognizant of the fact that this last spring, we went to the voters and asked for an additional lift on the tax bill to specifically fund the Ozaukee Central Fire Department. So we wanted to mitigate that impact. We also, at the same time, though, wanted to make sure we were supporting village operations, amenities, and infrastructure within the confines of the village budget. And in the end, we also wanted to be a reasonable portion of the overall tax bill. Interestingly enough, when you get your property tax bill, there are multiple taxing jurisdictions on that bill. There is the village of Grafton, there is Ozaukee County, there is MATC, and there is the Grafton or Cedarburg School District on that tax bill as well. So again, multiple taxing authorities actually create their individual tax rates that cumulatively show up on your property tax bill each year. This evening, this budget we're speaking about only impacts the village's portion of that property tax bill, and I will touch on that a little bit later as I break it down a little bit. So the largest portion of the village budget is the general fund. The general fund encompasses the vast majority of the village operations: Department of Public Works, Building Inspection, Police Department, portion of Parks and Recreation, administration, the village board, legal, and so forth. That said, the general fund is looking and is programmed with about a 7.75% increase. However, the tax levy support to the general fund is actually decreased slightly. In general, we are looking at a 2% cost of living wage adjustment for non-represented employees. The village does have one collective bargaining unit, being our police officers, and we do have a wage reserve budgeted for the collective bargaining results. We are currently in active negotiations with the police department union on a new collective bargaining agreement. We do forecast a conservative revenues in the form of permit fees and interest earnings. That is a common practice, not only here in Grafton, but many municipalities. I would argue we are overly conservative with regards to budgeting revenues. We do not want to over anticipate, if you will, incoming funds. We'd rather expect the worst with regards to expenses outgoing and be very conservative with regards to revenues or incoming funds. We do call for or allocate for benefit cost adjustments. Health insurance for village employees, the cost thereof is going up, as well as other benefits that are provided to our employees. We also see contractual increases allocated throughout the general fund, whether it be software licenses or our garbage and recycling hauling contract. Then we also have program tax levy transfers into recreation and aquatics funds. Again, that is part of the overall support of the park and recreation amenities and programming here in the village. The general fund does call for staffing changes. We are looking to, this is coming out of the budget workshop, where the original executive budget called for a school resource officer, an additional school resource officer, or a second SRO, and backfilling the patrol officer position, where we look, coming out of the budget workshop, the consensus of the village board was to reallocate that funding into one regular full-time patrol officer for the police department with roughly a mid-year start date. And the win-win of that consensus is the fact that we add patrol capabilities throughout the village, but also the ability to respond to the schools if needed by adding a position to the organizational chart for the police department. We're also looking to add a part-time building inspector within the general fund portion of the budget. We do have increased volume, and we do anticipate that increased volume of development to be ongoing. We also here in Grafton, by service contract, provide building inspection services to the village of Saukville. So the part-time building inspector position would be offset through permit fee revenues as well as revenues afforded to us through the village of Saukville and the activities there. That part-time inspector position also would look to replace currently contracted positions that we have here in the village. So that is another offset to that cost. Roads and bridges. This is a significant part of our budget every year. We are looking to take the tact in 2025 with this budget not to borrow funds that are tax levy supported for roads and bridges. That said, we still put forth a significant allocation for bridge repairs, but also a micro surfacing project. That is where a road that is in mid to good condition can be resurfaced and thus extending the life of it for approximately 7 to 10 years, and then remarking that stretch. In this particular budget, we call for micro surfacing the stretch of Wisconsin Avenue from Beach Street down to First Avenue. I have a graphic of that a little bit later as well. And then we do program fund balance within the budget. And please pardon the fat fingering the number of the overall fund balance that is being programmed. However, about half of it is for special one-time projects, which I'll review in just a second. And then the other half of it is unassigned and for emergency use only. The village does have a historical practice of programming fund balance within the budget with no intention for use. It is specifically for emergency use only. This particular year, we do assign some special one-time projects. And here are those one-time projects. The bridge repairs that I spoke to just a bit ago, we have some state mandated repairs here in the village that we need to address, and we're looking to do so with fund balance. This takes the stress off of the tax levy allocation throughout the budget. We're also looking to update our comprehensive land use plan. This is a document that the village utilizes in accord with state law to help guide our development decisions here in Grafton now and into the future. We are looking to set forth a significant allocation there to bring in an independent third-party consultant to facilitate public feedback and overall the process to update that comprehensive land use plan and really help create that vision for the village of Grafton moving forward with regards to land use development. We are looking at carrying out a classification and compensation study. Again, that allocation would be to bring in an outside consultant to take a look at our job descriptions, responsibilities, our compensation system as it compares to other municipalities in southeastern Wisconsin that are comparable to Grafton, and making sure we are a competitive employer. Again, looking to set forth an allocation there that brings in an outside consultant to have a completely independent review of our compensation system and provide us with feedback as an employer, but also an action plan how to implement any proposed changes. And then, as I mentioned, there is the other half of it that is unassigned, being the programmed fund balance. In case of emergency, break glass. Now moving into another portion of the village's budget are special revenue funds. Special revenue funds in their purest form are self-supporting. In other words, they collect their own fees or revenues that they support themselves. However, not all of our special revenue funds are self-supporting. As a matter of fact, several of them are not, and they are supported through tax levy or other means. The biggest change in the budget, and you'll see the primary stat up there, you see almost a 29% increase in the tax levy being sent to the special revenue funds portion of our budget. That is primarily because of the successful fire and EMS referendum for the Ozaki Central Fire Department. So the budget that the Village of Grafton has does note that the fire department is funded in accord with the Ozaki Central Fire Department's approved budget, which is approved then by each of the member communities. So the Village of Grafton's share or funding going towards the fire department in 2025, the referendum plus existing tax levy that we program, Act 12 funds, that is shared revenue from the state of Wisconsin that is earmarked for specific uses, fire and EMS, dispatching, police, or roads. Those are the only 4 uses that you can use Act 12 state dollars for, and a portion of our allocation here in Grafton does go towards the fire department. And then any existing village fund balances are to be transferred into this new multi-jurisdictional entity. So overall, greater than $2.8 million of support from the Village of Grafton alone is going towards the Ozaki Central Fire Department, with their overall budget being just north of $5 million. That said, moving into other areas, as I mentioned, we look to, with this budget, continue to support and improve upon park and rec and programming and facilities. The Park and Open Space Special Revenue Fund shows Meadowview play structure being replaced, the Zon Pavilion roof being replaced, a caulking project within our pool. That is a large-scale maintenance project that we are looking to carry out, as well as beginning the overall process of updating our park signage. We are seeing a trail project in the Black Hawk Valley area. This would connect the Black Hawk subdivision into the Blue Stem subdivision, and that is funded as well. Overall, we're looking at about $450,000 worth of improvements within our park system, and that's not even getting into the assistance with the aquatics facility, the programming, and the day-to-day operations of the Park and Rec Department. So overall, again, significant amount of support there. This is one of the changes, or the second change that came out of the budget workshop. The first one, as I mentioned, was the reallocation of the school resource officer funds to create a regular patrol officer for our police department. This was a consensus coming out of the budget workshop to decrease the tax levy support to the village, the library, by $20,000. The federal ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, we're looking to utilize the remaining balance of those federal dollars for the repaving of the Limekiln Park parking lots. And then we did receive, or Ozaki County provided or shared some of their federal dollars towards fire department staffing, which we are looking to execute and provide to the OCFD to carry out that staffing increase. And if I could back up, the notion of the decreased tax levy support to the library, the village did receive multiple communications. Copies of those communications are on the dais here this evening for the village board and will be incorporated into the public record as well. Just wanted to touch on that. And then other remaining special revenue funds are noted on the bottom of the page. Those are either experiencing minimal changes or are status quo from previous years. Debt service. I spoke before about the village did not want to take on in 2025 any additional tax levy funded debt. Over the last several years, the village has been very aggressive in its road program, borrowing funds that are tax levy supported to increase the amount of mileage being addressed with our road reconstruction program. That said, this is a move away from that, but we still addressed roads, as I previously mentioned, in a couple of different ways, and I'll get into some more detail on that in a minute. However, where we sit right now is we are looking at an uptick in our overall debt service of about $147,000, $148,000. Just simply, this is as our existing debt service matures. We have about a $25,000 tax levy allocation increase. And again, the budget for 2025 does not call for any tax levy funded debt. The village is carrying approximately 30% of its allowable debt per state law, which is very reasonable. We do have neighboring communities in southeastern Wisconsin that are carrying significantly higher percentage of their allowable debt. We do stay in this area and look to purposely manage that debt. It is important to note that the 2025 budget does call for debt service in our utility. Our utility is not funded through tax levy. Our utility, and I'll get into this a little bit later as well, is an enterprise fund. In essence, they operate as almost like a standalone business where it is user fees for sewer and water services that fund the utility operations. The 2025 budget does call for debt service in the utility. Capital equipment and capital projects portion of the budget, these are the large purchases, whether it be projects and or equipment. These working from bottom up, the equipment, we have a continuation of our police fleet lease program. We currently lease our police squads, and as the lease comes up after 4 years, we turn that back into enterprise, and that revenue actually comes back and reduces the price of future leases of police vehicles. Because of the constant churn of police vehicles, this program has been quite beneficial to the village. And so we are continuing that here in the 2025 budget. We are looking at a couple of carryover projects. The masonry truck purchase for our public works. That is a truck you would see out and about assisting with the various concrete related projects here in the village, but also a renovation of our firing range in our police department. This is a carryover project from this year's budget. New items include a drone for the police department, continuation on payments of financing for our street sweeper, police department equipment being vests, shields, taser, and in-squad equipment, an articulating loader for our public works department, computer replacements, and then electronic poll books, or what is known as Badger books, is included in the equipment the project CIP budget, Projects include the village's cost share of traffic signals at Port Road and Falls Road. The time frame for that is to bid out over winter, with construction starting in spring as weather permits, and then designing or allocation of funds for designing road reconstruction projects into the future. Basically having shovel-ready plans, if you will, on the shelf for us to be able to go to bid, at beneficial times. This graphic here, because one of the big considerations as part of the budget process is the quality of roads. Our goal is to continue to improve the quality of roads here in the village of Grafton. Every other year, the village actually carries out a road rating process called PACER. I apologize, I don't recall the acronym meaning. However, it is set for a standardized scale by the state of Wisconsin that we carry out. Our public works director travels every square inch of the village and grades out all of the roads. That said, as you can see, the trend line is definitely moving in a positive direction, and that trend line would continue, is anticipated to continue to move positively over the next couple of years as we get into 2025, our next review cycle, because again, we are programming improvement projects here in 2025, however, without tax levy supported debt. So as I mentioned, the water and wastewater utilities. This is another portion of our budget. This is a unique portion. As I mentioned, it's a proprietary fund. Words are hard sometimes, please excuse me. That said, they operate as, in essence, a standalone business. User fees fund this business venture, if you will. And for 2025, a 5% rate adjustment is assumed for the 25 budget for on the water and wastewater side of the rates. That said, there is a net income after expenses that is programmed or anticipated for 2025. Utility operations primarily are status quo. However, there is an addition of a full-time administrative assistant to help with such things as front office visits, as well as the myriad of state and federal reporting responsibilities that our utility has. Not only do we have to report to about water quality, but we also have to report on how the wastewater is handled as well. We are a unique utility in that we are self-contained as far as cross-trained being water and wastewater technicians. We have our own lab certified by the DNR. So we do a lot here in-house, and the staffing is looking to help support that a little bit from an administrative standpoint. Here is the utility capital project highlights. We continue a water meter changeout program. This has been over the course of a handful of years where we are changing from old style meters to meters that can be read remotely. So instead of having to physically go to the building each time, we are able to read the water meters remotely for billing purposes and usage purposes. It helps track in real time. So we are actually able as a utility to proactively reach out to the public if we notice a large amount of usage that seems out of the ordinary for a given property. So it helps in several ways there from an efficiency standpoint. General improvements to the wastewater treatment plant to the tune of about $642,000. Lift station upgrades, 9th, 11th Avenue lift stations in that area. And then equipment purchases for the utility, being a replacement truck, an excavator, and a jet truck financing. Now, the one part that I wanted to speak to last here is the most significant part of the utility capital improvement, and it plays into the road improvement aspect of the village's efforts, budgeting efforts as well. There's an emergency repair that was identified on Falls Street, and I will get into the details of that in just a bit. However, the map above shows a sections of street that will be financed through utility debt service, and we are looking to replace the sanitary sewer force main in the area, and then the road above it as well. And here are some of the details. And actually, this speaks to our road program as a whole. That Falls Street repair that I was just speaking about, the Village of Grafton televises its sewer mains about half of the village every other year. So every 2 years, we have a camera in all of the pipes throughout the village. This is the force main on Falls Street that leads towards the wastewater treatment plant. This actually carries waste from the portion of the east side of the village to the treatment plant. And this large gray area here, and I lost my cursor, this large gray area here that's being pointed to is actually a portion of this pipe that does not have a top. And here's what happens. Over the course of time, sewer gas actually eats at the concrete pipes that carry the sewage, and there is deterioration. This is a natural process. This is all part of it. That is why we televise these pipes. If that were to fail, and it is on pace to do so because of the damage we have found in the televising project, if that were to fail, not only would the pipe collapse in upon itself and clog up the system, potentially causing backups into residents, but also it would damage the road above it as well and creating sinkholes and hazards. So long and short of it, this is an immediate need. And so we are looking at not only replacing the force main, but also the road above it as part of the utility capital projects and as a part of the overall road program here in the Village of Grafton. I previously spoke to the microsurfacing of Wisconsin Avenue from Beach Street to First Avenue. We are funding this with tax levy in the amount of about $250,000. This would improve the road quality and extend the life of a major thoroughfare here in the village by 7 to 10 years. Falls and Port Road traffic signals. Not only are traffic signals going on, but going in for installation, but there are also road improvements associated with that, being deceleration, turn lanes, as well as the signals. But then, as I mentioned, we're also looking to have a tax levy of about $50,000 to do some proactive design and engineering, really looking to get plans ready to go that we can bid out and hopefully at advantageous times, as we are seeing some of the rates drop if we wish to borrow in the future. But that being said, looking to be proactive and be ready for future road programs. The village does have tax incremental financing districts. Tax incremental financing is an economic development tool where a district is created. The valuation, the base value is set, and all of the taxes associated with that base value continue to go to the various taxing jurisdictions, but any new value that is created through redevelopment, increased property values, what have you, that valuation is captured and can be applied to helping incentivize redevelopment and thus driving increased value. So across the 4 active TIFs, being number 3, 4, 5, and the newly created one, number 6, we're looking at about 2.96 million of increment generated across all the TIFs. Much of that increment actually helps to offset existing debt service within one of the districts. Closures for each of these ranges between 2027 and 2033, if not sooner. TIF number 6 is our brand new tax incremental financing district that was created. Collection of increment actually begins with the 2026 budget. No significant projects are proposed at this time. How does that all come to be and impact not only tax bill you see that shows up in your mailbox, but you as a property owner? The overall tax levy being programmed for collection by the Village of Grafton, again, as the Village of Grafton, its own taxing authority. This is not the school district. This is not MATC. This is simply the tax levy being collected by the Village of Grafton, is in the neighborhood of about 10.5 million. This is about a $1.6 million increase over 2024. 91% of that levy adjustment is based upon the fact the fire and EMS referendum was passed by the voters and allowing for $1.47 million of increased levy specifically for the Ozaukee Central Fire Department. The $147,000 of levy adjustment is our net new construction valuation. A high-level explanation of that tax levy adjustment is that state law strictly limits the ability for any municipality, not just Grafton, any municipality to increase its tax levy that it collects in a given year. It's either 0% or you may take a net new construction valuation levy adjustment. So when you take the value of all of the new homes and buildings that were built here in the village, run it through the state's formula, we were able to adjust our tax levy by $147,000. And that being said, that brings us to an overall village tax levy being captured for the 2025 budget of about $10.5 million. So and that then transfers or becomes the assessed tax rate for the village to collect the $10.5 million when applied to all of the properties in the village that are taxable, churches, schools, and so forth. Those are exempt from property taxes. Therefore, this applies to the taxable properties only. And that translates into about a $7.04 per $1,000 of valuation for an assessed tax rate. That is up about $1 over the previous year's tax rate. But again, that is primarily driven by the fire and EMS referendum. And that is what we expected as we went through the public education process as far as the impact of the fire and EMS referendum. So for an average home, and this comes from our assessor, the average home value in the Village of Grafton is $274,000. So taking a look at the average single family home, a $274,000 average home, divide that by 1,000, you get the 274. You apply that to the tax rate of $7.04. The village portion of the tax bill for an average single family home would be about $1,900. And that $1,900 actually helps fund here's how that would be applied. The general fund, again, that is police, parks and rec, public works, clerk's office, finance, legal, building inspection, community development, and so forth. That is the largest portion of our budget. Hence, it is the largest allocation. Another $425 of that, or about 22% of your village property tax bill, goes towards fire and EMS, and so forth down the line. Now, one thing I want to point out here that's pretty important. You might say, why is only 1% of my property tax bill going to park and open spaces? That is because a majority of the park and open spaces is actually funded through impact fees. Impact fees are collected when new development happens as part of fees they pay to the village with their permits. There are impact fees that are directly captured that are applied to debt service that the village took on to expand the police department, debt service that the village took on to build the public works facility. And then also it captures impact fees specifically for the purchase and improvement of park and open spaces here in the village. The very recent example of this that we utilize those funds would be Riverbend Park on the southeast side of the village. That is our new splash pad and pickleball courts. Grafton is big time now. We have our own pickleball courts, and that amazing facility was made possible through the impact fees that were captured with new development. And then about 3% of your village tax rate does apply towards debt service. Well, at the end, mission accomplished. As I mentioned, there were 3 primary goals to the village budget. We wanted to mitigate impact with this budget proposal. We're looking at $1 per thousand village tax rate adjustment with the fire and EMS referendum. If you would actually were to back out, let's say the referendum failed this spring, and we simply took that net new construction levy adjustment, which we have historically done, we'd literally see a penny on a tax bill. So that said, the voters really made it a point to say we need to move forward with supporting fire and EMS operations here in Grafton, as well as several other communities that went forward with their referendums. So we are seeing $1 tax rate adjustment. So we mitigated that impact. We do continue to support services and amenities, road improvements, park improvements, recreation and aquatics, infrastructure repairs, new and replacement equipment, and municipal services overall are either maintained or improved. And then the reasonable aspect. This gets a little bit interesting. So the Village of Grafton, for calculation of its tax bill, uses assessed valuation. We have our own contracted assessor that places a valuation on most of the properties here in the village. Manufacturing is actually assessed and set by the state of Wisconsin. So that being said, we use an assessed tax rate for the calculation of the village portion of the tax bill. However, the other taxing authorities on your tax bill, being the school district, the county, MATC, use an equalized valuation. Equalized property valuation is actually set by the state of Wisconsin, and it is intended to do just that. Equalize whether you're looking at a single family home here in Grafton or a single family home in Rhinelander. It's meant to really set an even playing field, if you will, when you're looking at valuations of types of properties, regardless of where you are in the state. Now, the unique part of that is the village's equalized tax rate is actually $5.39 per thousand. Our assessed tax rate is $7.04 per thousand. So there, you see the difference there? But again, what you see on your tax bill is that assessed tax rate. But in terms of comparison, wanted to take a look at our nearby school district partners who all utilize an equalized tax rate. The village's tax rate comes in at $5.39. Cedarburg School District, as some properties here in the village have that taxing jurisdiction on their tax bill. Others, the majority, have the Grafton School District on their tax bill. So as you can see, the village's equalized tax rate is very reasonable in the context of other taxing authorities that utilize equalized tax rates. So overall, mission accomplished with that. I want to say thank you very much to staff, as they play a very important role to the overall process, coming forward with requests and then working with administration to refine those requests to within the fiscal confines of the budget that is ultimately presented to not only you, the public, but also the village board for consideration. To give an idea and a shout out here to the quality of financial oversight that Grafton has as a community, we're one of only 7 communities in the state of Wisconsin to earn the Triple Crown designation from the Government Finance Officers Association. That Triple Crown is recognition of our budget publication, our popular annual financial report, which is, for lack of a better way to put it, a USA Today version of the village budget. It's very reader friendly. It's very much concise and summary of the overall village budget, if you will. But then also a comprehensive annual financial report, which is somewhere in the middle. So that being said, we are award winning in all 3 of those categories, and we are one of 7 communities in the state. We have 31 consecutive years of being recognized for our budget document. We have 14 consecutive years for our popular annual financial report, as well as our annual comprehensive financial report. So again, solid effort on behalf of staff with regards to carrying out the policy expectations and just overall expectations of the village board on behalf of you, the public. So thank you very much to all involved. And that is my presentation.
Appreciate it. Okay, just want to be able to get a general consensus of the board here, seeing that we have received, I received 10 comments, and I know that we have about somewhere around 17 people here who want to speak specifically on the school district. I'm sorry, specifically on the library. I just would like to get a consensus of where we sit right now as a village board. Last time we voted on a 5-2 consensus. It doesn't mean it was a vote that we were going to move forward through. But it was a vote that, to get the budget through. So I want to ask by a show of hands here, how many folks still support withdrawing $20,000 from the library budget? Show of hands.
Yeah,
I sure can. How many folks on the board support removing that $20,000 from the school, from the library at this point in time? So I'll ask the question a different way. Do we all agree that we are going to put that $20,000 back into, the library? Show of hands, all saying yes.
yes.
Okay, there we go. So that's back in. We want to thank all of the trustees here because I know that they've been very busy trying to get more information on this. And due to powers outside of our control, we have generally at our budget workshop, we generally have folks from each of the departments here to kind of extend their area. Amanda was unable to be here and you know, we really appreciate her coming out and working with the trustees kind of to tell us the reason why we needed to reinstate that. So again, I think excellent work by all. Thank you for all listening. Lisa?
So I just wanted to thank Amanda for reaching out to us. We were not at the last meeting. So talked about it and we were here. And she did explain, the huge grant that they got has been rolled into a fund that will be able to probably be present for perpetuity. And that is good that money will be there for programming. So that was explained. And the other thing I talked to her about is I never want to see the hours of the library cut. If anything, I think at some point you should consider some hours on a Sunday. Like some of our other communities, Cedarburg, Port Washington. So, you know, there's a lot of people that would like to see the library open on a Sunday. I hope the library board can take that up.
And yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. We will trust the library board to function as an independent group to be able to advise us on which way we need to go. So with that said, we'd love to hear from you. And I probably know some of you have had some really good comments. And by the way, I want to tell you, some of the letters that we got here, I can tell you guys really go to the library because it's not our usual, our usual letters are not filled with, they weren't filled with bad words. Let's just put it that way. Thank you very much. And you know, we do listen to you. So with that said, we're going to put 3 minutes on the board for each of you if you want to speak. We hit 3 minutes, you're going to hear kind of a buzzer sound. That's just your note that could you wrap up the comments. You know, again, the other thing too, we have a lot of people who want to speak tonight. If we can avoid repeating, like for example, saying, you know, I think we need to reinstall or reinstate the $20,000. I would just like you to be able to say, I agree with the person that just spoke. That way we can keep the meeting rolling here. The first person I'll call is Julia Lee, 9 South Pine Street. If you wouldn't mind coming up here, you can speak. Also, if you do not wish to speak and you want to pass on that, you can. Julia, state your name and address again.
Hi, my name is Julia Lee. I'm at 1609 South Pine Street. I had a speech written that was about 3 minutes urging you to fund the library. So I just want to thank you for reconsidering and putting the money back into the budget. Libraries are such an important part of a community, and a thriving library means the community is thriving. It means we value education, we value culture, and it's so important to make sure that we fund our library, we support our library. That gives us so many things free of charge. There's no other place you can go to get access to all the resources that libraries provide. They are the heart of the community, and knowing that you support the community and fund it means that Grafton will continue to thrive and grow stronger. So it's a different speech than I planned to make, but thank you so much for funding the library. It's a strong move to make Grafton an even stronger community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate your extemporaneous speaking. Shane Lee. Shane? Again, name and address, please.
Shane Lee, 1609 South Pine Street. like Julia, I didn't bother writing a speech, so thank you for saving me that time. Because I was just gonna have to come up with something on the spot anyway, so when you pivoted and gave us the good news that the $20,000 is going back in, that's just music to my ears. I wouldn't have had any bad words in the letters, I promise anyway. So I just want to thank you for reconsidering and giving funding back into the library. Because the biggest function I see a library is, it's a place for ideas. You share ideas. The more ideas you have access to, the better. That's why there are several of you up here, not just one Burgermeister deciding everything that's going to happen in Grafton. And if you are going to have a healthy community, you need a place to gather. And in so many healthy communities, the library is that place. So I encourage you to just continue that support, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle Boyle?
Hello, I'm not really sure how this affects. Thanks, Michelle Boyle, N77W7063 Oak Street in Cedarburg. I have worked at the Grafton Library for 2.5 years. I enjoy my job. I'm roughly spending half the time with the adults and half the time in the youth library, so I've gotten to know the entire community. I have 4 kids. The oldest one has autism. We spend a lot of time at the library. We've taken part in all the programs, summer reading. We check out a lot of materials. We checked out $55,000 worth so far and counting. In order to save money, I believe the part-timers are going into a rotating schedule, which means their schedule changes from week to week. Since I have 4 kids whose schedules do not rotate, I no longer fit the position at the library. And I believe as I came in, I thought I'd be losing my job at the end of the year. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not yet. It might still happen with the rotating, because I have 4 kids. So I'm very sad about that, and it's going to hurt our family. I've come to love this community. No, I don't belong to this community. I love this community. My favorite patron is an elderly gentleman that comes in every Thursday, no matter what. He always comes in and he always says very formally, Michelle, how is your health? About 2 months ago, he came in very, very sick, and we were all really worried about him. And then the following Thursday, he wasn't there, and I was working at the reference desk, and I answered the phone, and he was calling from the hospital from what I thought was his deathbed. He could hardly speak, but it was a Thursday, and he wanted to let me know that he wasn't able to pick up his books on the hold shelf in case someone else was waiting for the books. At which point I lost. I waved the reference librarian over, and he took over. This patron comes in to see the reference librarian anyway because he really loves the reference librarian, and they chat. Anyway, so we hadn't seen him for weeks, and we thought he had passed away. And then just a few days ago, on a Thursday, he came in with his walker moving slower, and I was so happy to see him. I gave him a hug because I never thought I'd see him alive again. And I told him as much, and his response to me was, Michelle, how is your health? So anyways, I will miss him when I lose my job. I'll miss the whole community. And thank you for protecting patrons like him and the community, because it's a very special place. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Monica Dempsey?
Monica Dempsey, 2174 Hunters Lane. I wasn't going to speak, but I will just say that since I was seeking a rationale was what I wanted to ask questions, but you've already answered many of the questions. So what I do want to say though is going forward, just to consider please what our village motto is. It's quality life. Naturally, and I think that a library is part of that quality of life, and we choose to live in the village for several reasons, and having a thriving library is important. And I guess I would consider, if you're going to cut money, please consider where you would cut that from. And I think the timing is pretty remarkable. I think that was really not a well thought out, choice in light of what's happening with the town, the choice that the town of Grafton is making. I didn't think the timing was very, maybe wise. So I just want to share that for, as you go forward and kind of consider the choices that you make and the propositions that you put forth.
Thank you. Carol Curtis,
I don't need to speak.
thank you very much, Carol. Jody Sensala, thank you. Jim Grace,
I will also pass, thank you.
Caitlin Seikma. Hoffman.
Okay, when you look to Cedarburg, you look to Mequon, you look to Germantown, you look to Hartford. And the reason I can say this with confidence is I believe very strongly in a library for a community and the quality of life. 2 years ago, my grandkids, I push reading, right? And so one of the things I said, something different, we're gonna go visit libraries and you can vote your best ones. And in doing that was very eye-opening to what the Grafton Library is like. And I've been here over 40 years. My kids go to St. Paul's. They used to walk to the library. We use the library extensively. We use programming. So it's a good library, but we have to come further now. We're kind of stuck in a very old mode. When you go to these other libraries, you see, man, look at this building. This is not, if you go to the Village Town Hall, it's much different than this. We have to go there also with our library. I think we need to go more into the programs. You know, I heard 450,000 for the park and recreation, and I understand it's a little bit funded with the fees and things. But I want to remind you, this is Wisconsin. We are not outside all the time. And I think the library that the kids can come to Saturdays, things that the kids can come to in evenings, even that would really be a thing for quality of life in Grafton and something to look forward to. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Dowling,
Dowling, 382 North Mill Street, Saukville. I had a long speech as well. I'm not gonna make you subject to that, but thank you for your time and consideration today. Thank you for listening to all of us. I know it can get a little repetitious. We really appreciate it, and all the cool libraries, or all the cool villages are not cutting their library funds, so thank you for joining that.
up from the north side of town, Kevin Curtis.
I'm gonna pass my time and thank the board for
Okay,
reconsidering.
thank you, Kevin. Heather Meyer,
And I live at 1039 9th Avenue, and one of the reasons I bought that house is because I could walk to the library. So to hear that the library funding was gonna be reduced, to me was unconscionable. And so I was like, okay, I haven't had supper yet, I'm gonna go to the meeting. And I would really like to see the library expand. I am an East Coaster. So in Rhode Island, you got a library card that was good at the whole state. And, here it's limited. And the hours, I wish we had more hours and that there were more options available in the library. I used to work in the city of Providence, and the Providence Public Library had a program where homeless people could come in and get coffee and a snack, and they could spend the whole day at the library. And they were welcomed. I have to say one thing Grafton has going for it, the library staff is very friendly. Not all the local libraries are so friendly, especially when you move in from a different place. So I'm really glad to see that whatever it took to change the library budget happened. And thank you for the work you do here, because I really like living in Grafton, especially the village. Thanks.
thank you very much. Okay, before we move on to another comment here, anybody else wish to speak on the library? Okay, Bill Harbeck on microsurfacing.
Hi, Bill Harbeck, 907 17th Avenue. Just one quick question on microsurfacing of the road. Please hold your applause when I'm finished with this. The PowerPoint said 1.2 miles. It's the distance that's going to be microsurface. The PowerPoint said 1.2 miles, and in the budget book it had on page 17.43 miles. So if you could clarify that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Jesse Amber, could you please address?
1.2 miles is correct.
Thank you.
1.24 microsurfacing, and then the addition of the other, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, the other for the Fall Street.
The microsurfacing is 1.2, and then Fall Street is in the neighborhood of about 0.4, 0.5.
Okay. Don, you have a comment? No, okay, very good. Anybody else have a comment regarding the budget? Going once. Anybody have a comment? Any other comments? Don't hold back. And we will close the public hearing at this point in time. I do want to make a quick comment on this. Thank you all for showing up. We really appreciate it. This is last year, we had one person show up for the budget. So either it means that we really did something good, like getting you all in here, or we did something bad. But no, nonetheless, it's really great to hear from you. We appreciate you coming tonight, and stick around because we're going to be voting on the budget here and talking a little bit more about that in a moment. With the public hearing closed, I will look for a motion to file the August 26, 2024 Joint Library Board minutes, to file the September 18th, 2024 Parks and Recreation Board, the September 24th, 2024 Planning Commission, the September 30th, 2024 Joint Library Board, I believe was not the correct not the correct accepted minutes. And I think what we're probably going to do with that is probably get that in next week's the meeting in 2 weeks. So we are not going to be filing the 9/30/2024 Joint Library Board. We'll also be filing the October 10th, 2020 Police and Fire Commission meeting minutes as presented. I'll need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Motion and second, other than what was stated with September 30th Joint Library Board, any other corrections, additions? Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Now comes another interesting point. Does anybody wish to speak on an agenda or a non-agenda item? Very good. So there's no cats in the trees tonight. That's good to hear. All right, business presented by the president is going through the normal work agenda. Let's talk about a resolution adopting the 2025 program budget and establishing the 2024 tax levy. Jesse?
Absolutely. Pardon me. This is the culmination. This would be the culmination of the budget process whereby the village board would, by an offer, motion, and a second, adopt a resolution establishing the 2025 annual program budget with or without any changes that have been discussed, and establishing the 2024 tax levy. The reason the tax levy is backdated is because collection does begin this year, going into next year to fund the 2025 budget. So the resolution is the final action by the village board, which is the culmination again of the budgeting process.
Okay, very good. We will bring this to the table for final discussion. However, we did establish consensus on most items at the last meeting. Obviously we are going to be looking for a offer, a motion and a second on this. And then we can bring it up for further discussion. So I'll need to offer a motion and second to.
I'll make an offer including the addition of $20,000 for the library budget.
Thank you very much.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Okay, we have offer, motion and second. Is there any further discussion?
Clarification, it should be 20,000 from the library and 20,000 less in the general fund.
Right.
So you're not
You got
increasing
that?
the tax bill by 20,000.
Correct.
Very good.
Thank you,
So
Paul.
we will go forward with any additional discussion here. I see Lisa with your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So in light of the money going back to the library, the other thing I would ask is that hopefully the library can work with the town and try to figure something out. I know it's a two-way street, so that we can retain that money so that we can continue as one group. So I would like to, ask Amanda, and I know you've tried, so keep up the good work. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is, I know we've talked about this in the past, I voted against TID6, that's getting TID, for a number of reasons. One being that, going forward, residents will be able to ask the village to help them with remodeling of their home or updates. And I am saddened by the fact that they have to wait 12 years. That is one of the reasons I'm voting no. And then the other reason I'm voting no on the budget is because I don't feel that the fire department got the adequate amount of tax revenue funds going forward.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Jesse?
If, I guess for clarification point, we don't necessarily know that it would be a 12-year wait on that incentive program. It depends on how successful that tax incremental financing district is. One of the primary goals of tax incremental financing district number 6 is the redevelopment of a former foundry site that is in very poor condition now. If we proverbially catch lightning in a bottle, have an interested party comes in, drives that value, that incentive program could actually start much sooner. We were very reserved and conservative in forecasting when the increment could become available to fund an incentive program for single family residences within the TIF district, because again, that's a revenue. We want to be very conservative on that aspect. So if again, a project comes in and drives valuation and thus increment creation, that incentive program for single family residential improvements could actually kick off much sooner. That 12-year window is not set in stone.
And that's great news. However, I did not agree with the fact that to get the TID6 in play, we also had to designate a number of private residences as blighted. And so for me, I had a problem with that, as did some of the residents. So that's another reason. I hope that that's not the case, Jesse, that maybe they can get that money sooner, but
Same.
that was another reason.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment on the budget? Anyone? All right, we have a offer motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That, Ashley, you have that? All set. Very good. You guys want to hang around for the rest of the meeting, you can. Or if you can. No, that's fine. Well, thank you all for coming and thank you all for having a good night. All right, let's look to next agenda item here. First Amendment for the Ozaki Central Fire Department intergovernmental agreement. Easy for me to say, hard for you. Go ahead, Jeff.
We'll stick with acronyms, the OCFD intergovernmental agreement. This is falls in the category of you don't know what you don't know. So we've got 4 communities that came together to sign an intergovernmental agreement to create a new fire department that serves Central Ozaki region. Part of that intergovernmental agreement created a board of directors. One of the positions, that non-voting position, was that of secretary treasurer. That was a combined position, which would handle, in essence, accounting and then administrative tasks as well. What we've come to find out over the first handful of meetings as the Ozaki Central Fire Department Board of Directors, that quite frankly, that doesn't work well for our model. And what the amendment being brought forward for Village of Grafton, Village of Saukville, Town of Saukville, and Town of Grafton consideration at their respective board meetings is to separate those 2 positions. The secretary position would also be allowed to be either a member community employee or a employee of the Ozaki Central Fire Department. As again, the secretary really carries out a lot of that administrative support role, being agendas, meeting packets, preparation of minutes. Currently, I am acting as secretary for the OCFD Board of Directors. I am crafting all of the minutes. I am putting together the packets. I am mailing out the agendas to the individual clerks for posting. That being said, there's got to be a more efficient way of doing that, and this amendment helps serve that purpose. Moving into the treasurer aspect of the amendment, this amendment would look to allow for a temporary arrangement for a member community, probably the village of Grafton for 2025, to serve as the treasurer for the OCFD as they get up and running, as they get that contracted treasurer in place, being in essence an accountant, and acclimated to their operations and budgeting practices. So what that allows for is the separation of those duties and allowing on a temporary basis a member community to serve in that role. This is coming forward with a unanimous recommendation from the OCFD board, which does have 3 representatives from the village of Grafton that sit on it. And again, it is being considered by each of the individual municipalities in accord with the agreement. All of the municipalities must approve the amendment for it to take effect. So this is before the village board this evening for your consideration.
I'll look for a motion and a second for approval of the First Amendment to the OCFD agreement as proposed.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion on this? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Amy?
So Jesse, if this passes and is accepted, does the new secretary start then in January? And will you be doing it for the next 2 months?
That will be up to the fire board. The fire board can designate the new secretary, but again, I guess waiting aspect of it will be waiting for the amendment to go through each of the member communities' approval process. So for the time being, I'm assuming probably for the next 30 days, I'm going to be that person, but that's all right. I've accepted that role. And then once approved and ratified by each of the member communities, the fire board would have the authority then to change the designation to whom they see fit.
And then will the board be the one looking for the new treasurer then?
Yes, the OCFD board, they would probably task the chief with bringing candidates forward, but that decision lies with the OCFD board.
Anybody else wish to comment? Please just keep in mind if you want to speak, just give me a signal, please. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. All right, First Amendment to Development Agreement with Harmony Grove Subdivision, TIF Financial.
There is an existing development agreement on file for the Harmony Grove residential subdivision. This is the 3.7 acre property on Green Bay Road, formerly owned by the village. It was sold and therefore a development proposal for a 12-lot single-family subdivision came forward. That being said, the developer, as part of the development agreement, did receive some financial assistance in the amount of $23,400. That said, the development agreement also includes a guaranteed minimum assessed valuation on or before December 31st of 2027. Moving forward, as the project has progressed, the developer did come back to the Community Development Authority, making a request for additional tax incremental financing assistance to address soil conditions and foundation construction practices, being forced piers. These are cement piers that help stabilize a structure because of the bedrock and soil conditions in the area. This is a necessary measure needed to help facilitate the development and thus drive the value within the TIF district. A $160,000 incentive would be structured as a pay-as-you-go type of payment schedule that is driven by the valuation of the project and hence a payment of an incentive. So pay as you go, i.e. paying as you build that increment. With that being said, this is a very similar type of incentive, so therefore we are not looking at a precedent in any way, shape, or form, as this type of incentive was utilized for the 1505 lumberyard development in a much larger fashion and a much longer time frame. This would be a bit of an abbreviated time frame just due to the fact the small scale of the assistance being requested. This is coming forward with a recommendation from the Community Development Authority. Final action is required by the village board.
Very good. Okay, brings to discussion. I'll need a motion in a second. Okay, motion in a second. Discussion on this. Can you start? Anything down here?
No. Yes. Jesse, on page 3 of the TIF financial assistance and funding conditions. Under the letter C. It's triple I. It says additional tax increments shall not be used for any other purposes, including without limitation, on and on and on. So essentially, this agreement puts them first in line to receive reimbursement in the event that we get increments out of the tax district, correct?
They would, well, I guess what I'm understanding that language basically, restricts this TIF incentive for the specific use identified, by the,
But
in the
it makes
request.
it so that in the event that we're.
So that's what I understand, and maybe I'm not following your question correctly, so let's take another kick at this.
Okay, so, it basically makes it so that my read of this basically makes it that they're first in line when any increment comes forward for those payments in 28, 29, 30, and 31.
I see what you're saying.
They become the primary, so it puts any increment that we have going forward that we're looking at going towards the Goldberg Foundry project. It puts that secondary to it.
I
So
see
if
what
we
you're saying.
generate an increment, we're
Mhm.
paying them first.
I see what you're saying.
If I could, trustee Schwartz, if you refer to the definition of an additional available tax increment, it requires first that the administrative costs of the TIF be paid before the developer is paid. Then, yes, the developer steps into a priority position, but you'll see that the payments are limited. It starts by a 30% of any increment. Would, any tax increment from this development would go back to the developer, and it ramps up after 2 years to 50%. So the developer is essentially sharing the tax increment from his development.
And
in- in
if I
that
could just clarify that also, that it is only the tax increment from Harmony Way. It is not the wider tax increment from the entire district.
Yeah, perhaps that wasn't clear either. This has to do with, essentially, the developer gets paid back a portion of the tax revenue that they generate that the developer generates from the increment that the developer develops on the site. And it starts at a 30% rate and it goes up to a 50% rate until they're paid their $160,000. The rest of the revenue is shared with it goes to the village and goes to the TIF projects that you're concerned about.
Sure. So, I'm concerned, I know that before the project got underway, we were in it already for $23,000+ for, I believe, sidewalk or curb. And then they came back to us knowing that they needed some additional help for the issues with, digging. So we're already into 483,000. I'm just worried that there will be a lot more requests, and so I'm voting no.
And I think that we discussed this at the CDA at under extent, because initially the request came through for 200,000, and that dollar amount was cut down in knowledge of the fact that we had already paid out 22, or we were agreeing to 22 or $23,000, correct?
Correct.
So, and in addition to that, we did know that there were some bedrock issues when we did sell that, and so was the purchaser aware of the fact that we couldn't build a aquatic center there because of the bedrock that's there. So I think the CDA did agree that it was reasonable, given the fact that we knew about this before, and there might need to be some curing that's done there to stabilize that. And in my understanding here, you're going to be above ground by December, we're hopeful. Yeah, so with completion, hopefully by end of 25 with some of those buildings. Okay, very good. So just my question there. So any other discussion here? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, got that, Ashley? Very good. Moving on, let's go to the report of the Park and Rec committees.
Coming forward to the village board, out of the Park and Recreation Board is the proposed increase to the daily admission and membership fees for the Family Aquatic Center to take effect for the 2025 swimming season. This is simply a market adjustment based upon research done by the Park and Rec department, and just looking to keep us competitive within the area, but also helping to fund the operations as well. So it is a measured approach to increasing the fees. We are not the top in the area by a significant amount, but we do want to look to uptick these fees. And again, this is being recommended for approval from the Park and Rec Board.
Therefore, I'll take a motion in a second to bring this to discussion and vote.
I'll make the motion.
Second. A motion in second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Report of Planning Commission. Ordinance Amendment, Article 6, Architectural Design Standards related to wall signage.
For these two items, I would actually defer to Assistant Administrator Wolf as she crafted these ordinances and worked directly with the Plan Commission on these two.
It would be nice to hear her voice.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. There are two amendments here. The first one, related to the architectural design standards section of the zoning ordinance. And that's simply a requirement for applicants to now, indicate where wall signage will be located on different lots. This is a conceptual, location of signage. It is not an approval of wall signage, in any manner. It's just, again, a way for the architecture review board to understand how that signage is going to impact the overall design of the building. The second amendment is related to public notification signage. The Plan Commission has been considering this for several months and is recommending that the village board do an amendment to require applicants that have public, for developments that have public hearings to place a physical yard sign at their development site that states that there is a proposed development. And it will include the Community Development Department's phone number and a QR code with a link to the development proposals for that month. So that in a way that we can be more transparent and provide more information to residents that are interested but maybe aren't within our 200 or 300 foot mailing distance for those public hearing notices.
Very good. We'll pick these separately. Ordinance amending Article 6, Architectural Design Standard related to wall signage. Need a motion in a second.
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion in second. Any discussion on that? All right, go to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Second, ordinance amending section 190909, the village code related to public notification signage. Motion in a second, please.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
The motion in second. Any discussion on this at all?
I just have a question.
Yes.
And I know this was talked about at the Plan Commission. So the whole idea is there's a sign out there for residents to weigh in on that. And is there a question about if there's no, this last sentence, the failure to give any notice to any property owner shall not invalidate the action?
Right, if someone removes the sign or a snowplow takes it, or some other incident, it would not invalidate the Plan Commission could still take action on the item. This is
It's not-
truly an informational sign.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not
Not
saying that they
required.
never put one there because you're gonna.
I'm sorry?
The Plan Commission, will you put the sign or?
No,
will
the applicant is
Okay.
responsible for placing the sign. We will have the signs at Village Hall. They will come and pick one up and place it there and then bring it back to Village Hall when it is completed. They will be reusable.
I think to clarify that even further is that the person is out of town, like, let's say it's somebody owns an apartment and they want to go from whatever that is, those people may live out of town. Jessica would probably assist in putting that sign up in its usual circumstance.
If they do not have a local agent, staff will take that responsibility on, yes.
Yep, and I think that's just a way of being able to tell people who live in apartments or in other facilities, multi-family facilities, that there might be a change. Certainly they can make it. I think it was a very good suggestion, Jessica. So with that in mind, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jesse, how would you like to talk again?
Oh, I just got a couple of things for the village board. Number one, so much for a winter slowdown for our community development department. We, coming up on our next architectural review board meeting, we have 16 new single-family home applications coming forward. So the village continues with its single-family development, which is a great positive sign for the overall health and well-being of our community, but also just simply the desirability to be in Grafton here with everything that we offer. So pray for the community development department as they try to keep up with this breakneck pace. But that being said, what we generally would see historically a little bit of a lull over winter. that's so far not happening, so. That being said, I want to close out with, significant kudos to our clerks department and our, all of our election, workers. Tomorrow is the November 5th general election, as we all know. The village does have a polling place at Grace Lutheran Church, 715 6th Avenue. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That being said, over the previous 9 days of in-person absentee voting and then the prior days of, absentee voting through the mail and requesting ballots through the mail. Over this period, the clerk's office has experienced, the village of Grafton has experienced just over 57% voter turnout between requested ballots and those being cast in person absentee. All of those are in sealed containers and will be processed tomorrow in accord with state law. But knowing that we are walking into a general election tomorrow with over 57% voter turnout having occurred here in the village is pretty amazing. And that speaks to the efficiency of not only our clerk's office, Katie Olson and Carmen, but also the ability of our election workers to help out and assist and basically man the polls here at Village Hall during that period. So kudos to all of them. Last, I just want to close with a quick note, because this general election, as we all know, through the news coverage and whatnot, has carried a lot of scrutiny and attention. The clerk's office has been working very closely with the Grafton Police Department to ensure a safe environment for anyone and everyone to come out and vote. So again, I want to close with, again, a special thanks to the clerk's department and all of our election workers for all of their efforts as we head into the general election room.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. Okay, we don't have questions during this time. It's just strictly one way. If you have a question, you can ask Jesse. After that's good. Licenses, we have no licenses to approve at this point in time. We did see some voted reported bills. I do see village expenditures of $671,432.25. Did see some comments back and forth. Look for a motion. And a second.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, any other further discussion on this, Andy?
Yes, on page 11, it's semi irrelevant as to what page it's on, but that involved the traffic signal knockdown at Falls Road and Wisconsin. And it's a reimbursement to outdoor signal for fixing it. And then on page 12, the PSD C thing that you already commented back to us on.
Mhm.
Are we eligible for reimbursement for the traffic signal knockdown from insurance from the operator of the vehicle that did that?
We do actively pursue insurance claims with the operators that do take down signal signs, what have you. They aren't always successful, but we do actively pursue that, correct? Yep.
Okay, and then with the PSC one, in the event that we are successful in defending ourselves here, then does that bill slide back to the complainant?
Well, I appreciate the optimism there. No, state statute specifically says we're on the hook for reimbursing the Public Service Commission for their prep time, and they bill us accordingly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, motion in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. A second.
Motion in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chief, Captain, could you come up here for a second, please?